and welcome back to my channel. What a long time it has been since I filmed a video, but I'm so happy to be back here sharing all the good things about homeschooling, homemaking, and motherhood. So today I want to talk to you about something that I get asked about quite frequently, and that is how to teach reading the Charlotte Mason way. So I have a 6-year-old and she is a first grader. She's in Form 1B. In case you're not familiar, we use the CMEC as our core program, and it's been wonderful to see all of the progress that she's made. But as with most Charlotte Mason curriculums, we have the freedom of choosing our reading curriculum or program and our math curriculum or program. So with that said, I'm going to share with you what we've done so far this year to help her learn how to read. So I want to begin by talking about Charlotte Mason's method. Now, if you haven't read the book Home Education by Charlotte Mason, it's her very first volume, and it is a wonderful resource for mothers who are wanting to get more familiar with her methods and her philosophy as a whole. It's wonderful if you have a child age 0 to 6, because that's kind of what she's targeting in this book. And reading lessons is something that she talks about quite a bit in her book. So what I love most about Mason's method is that it's so gentle. As with everything that she does, she really allows the child to work at his or her own pace, to develop and just kind of develop a love for reading and a love for the alphabet and a love for word making in a very natural way. So she really encourages mothers to keep a watch on your child and just kind of look for those readiness skills. Obviously, if you're familiar with Charlotte Mason's way, you do not start formal lessons until age 6. So if your child is under the age of 6, you should not be sitting down with them every single day, drilling them with flashcards. That is not the way that Charlotte Mason taught children how to read. So one of the first things you can do, and this is what Charlotte Mason recommends in her book, is put a box of letters. This is just a little letter box here that we have in my 3-year-old's playroom area. And these are wooden letters. I'm going to link them in the description below, but you can see the wooden letters are just tiny. They fit in little hands very well. And I just set these in the play area, and I allow my child to kind of explore them as she's ready. Each day, sometimes I'll sit next to her as she looks at them, and we can talk about how the O, you can make your mouth into an O and what sound this makes. But it's a very informal sort of game-like situation with the letter box. You'll find with Charlotte Mason's method that many of the ways that she teaches reading and word making are through games and fun versus sitting down and just having this daily, monotonous, boring reading lesson. So consistency is important though, so we do sit down each day and work on reading for my 6-year-old, and then as my 3-year-old decides she wants to kind of jump in, she can, and we'll talk about her letter sounds. But basically you're starting with the alphabet, and I'm going to read a quote from Charlotte Mason. It says, "Let the child alone and he will learn the alphabet for himself. But few mothers can resist the pleasure of teaching it, and there is no reason why they should. For this kind of learning is no more than play to the child, and if the alphabet be taught to the little student, his appreciation of both form and sound will be cultivated." So that's from page 203 on in Home Education. I just love how she comments on the fact that it's the mothers that really want the children to learn their alphabet, so that you can say, "Oh, little Tony knows his alphabet," when they're like 3. So it's important to let your child kind of discover the letters on their own. Do not do what I did when my 6-year-old was 3 before I found Charlotte Mason and kind of look through the flashcards and drill them. The next thing that we use for our little toddler is, and what I used for my 6-year-old when she was younger, is the sand tray. The sand tray is a wonderful resource because you can sit and show your child the letter, and you can say, look at how the M looks like two little humps, and you can have your child form it on their own in the sand tray. So it's just a little tray, a wooden tray that I have, and then I got some sand from the coast actually, and I would just have it there, and she could trace. And that helps them picture those letters in their mind's eye. We use the sand tray still and the wooden letters for word making, which is the next step in learning how to read. So after your child has not even mastered the alphabet, I would just say is familiar, you can kind of start, as long as they know the alphabet sounds, most of them, you can kind of start doing little games with them, which are what we call word making. And Charlotte Mason talks about how you can explain to the child, once you put the words, the letters together, how they make a word. So this is what we call phonics, and also phonemic awareness, which is just an awareness of how the sounds in the alphabet can form to make words. So with this step, games are really handy for learning about how to make words. So we'll do a lot of chalkboard work, and this is my daughter's book of words, and inside we've just written all of the words that we've practiced together to kind of learn different rules. So we'll put both sight words, which are words you can recognize by sight, and then words you can sound out. And this is kind of a hallmark of the Charlotte Mason method, is learning words like February. You can't see it, but February or Christmas or cupboard, obviously words you can't sound out phonetically, but they're interesting to the eye, and she talks about that. I'll read a quote about that in a minute. And then you also have the words that you just sound out, and she calls these kind of monotonous, but it is an important thing to learn. So she talks a lot about having that be, having variety, and so definitely do both word making with sight words, which are again words like you can't sound it out, but it's a word that you have to know, or a word like I said, cupboard or Christmas or twinkle is another example. So this is the program that I started with for this year. This is recommended by the CMEC. It's called Discover Reading by Amy Tuttle, and many of the games that I'm going to mention today come from this book, and she really does a great job of kind of putting all of the Charlotte Mason reading method into one place. So I would highly recommend this. I have one other program that I'm going to recommend at the end of this, but I haven't used it as much. So this has really been a good resource for me. And again, I was a kindergarten teacher, so I'm very used to teaching children how to read, but I like how she kind of outlines this. It, like I said, very on target with the Charlotte Mason method. So in addition to making words, we play reading games like search and find. So if my daughter's learning a word like twinkle, we're reading a rhyme, twinkle, twinkle, little star. I want her to learn all of those words, twinkle, little, and star. And so I would show the word to her, have her build it with her wooden letters, and then we could also play a game called search and find, where we find it on a page. We look, obviously I would have to prepare for this ahead of time, but I would find a page with text on it and make sure it has the words twinkle, twinkle, have her point it out, and that way her mind's eye is starting to recognize that and kind of remember how it's formed and how it looks on the page. Another one is sound count, where you can have your child listen to the word like cat, and you can have them tell you how many sounds they hear, and you can tell them what the first sound was, what the last sound was, have them recite those things to you. And it's just a game that my child and I would play in the car. It's something that I did a lot before we started our formal reading lessons. That is more of a auditory game, and you can kind of do that with a child that is able to identify the sounds in those words. So again, everything that I'm mentioning today, you have to make sure your child is ready to do that. So if they're struggling with knowing what the sound a bee makes, if they don't know that it makes b, they're not going to be able to pick out the sound in the word bat. You have to really take it in order as best you can, and just kind of watch your child. So anyway, I talk about a lot of the games we play, and I show pictures and stuff in the blog post that's linked in the description below, so you can look at that if you are confused. I'm going kind of quickly, but that's because I have little kiddos and a puppy that is waiting on me to be done with this video. After we have made words and we've practiced word making, we've recorded every new word we learn in our book of words, which is such a wonderful resource. We review the book of words every single, most days for our reading lessons. And then after that, we start learning nursery rhymes. And nursery rhymes, it says here by Charlotte Mason on page 205 of Home Education. At this age, the child's reading lesson must advance so slowly that he may just as well learn his reading exercises, both prose and poetry, as recitation lessons. Little poems suitable to be learned in this way will suggest themselves at once, but perhaps prose is better, on the whole, as offering more of the words in everyday use of Saxon origin and of anomalous spelling. Short fables and graceful simple prose are very suitable. Even for their earliest lessons, it is unnecessary to put twaddle into the hands of children. So when she says twaddle, she means books that are, this is going to ruffle some feathers, but a good example would be a Frozen book, like the movie Frozen, and it's in those easy readers that you probably used as a child. I know I used them when I was learning to read, and they're very, very simple. They're very, very boring. The words are just very monotonous. And so I think that's what she's referring to when she says twaddle. Put in front of them things that are going to catch their eye, like the poem or the nursery rhyme, Little Jack Horner. Little Jack Horner sat in a corner eating a Christmas pie. He put in his thumb, pulled out a plum, and said, "What a good boy am I." There's a lot of really exciting flowery language in there, and they're words that are going to be memorable. So yeah, so anyway, nursery rhymes are a wonderful place to start. The first nursery rhyme we worked on together, my daughter and I, was Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And then I had her choose another one of her favorites because we've been reading nursery rhymes for several years. So then we did Jack and Jill. And so we've really just kind of moved right along with the nursery rhymes. And then we also are really big fans of Robert Louis Stevenson's poetry. So we will use a poem of his here and there, just a couple of lines at a time. And she'll learn the words. We'll record them in the book of words. We'll look for them in other texts. We will find common words like cat or bat or whatever word is easy to spell, and we'll kind of switch out the front sound to make a new word. We're really pulling apart these rhymes and spending a lot of time with them and just really having fun with it. And I think that's important. Charlotte Mason talks a lot about how learning to read is hard work, but it needs to be fun. So now that my daughter and I are still going through nursery rhymes, we've also added in some readers. This is the Free and Treadwell reader. I've also heard good things about the Beacon readers, I believe. But I have this one and I have the First reader. And we are about halfway through this one. And these are common stories like Chicken Little or The Gingerbread Boy, or The Little Red Hen, and they've got some really good words in there, like the word pancake. It's not super difficult to sound out, but they've got words like snout or let's see. I mean, this is a lot. My 6-year-old can read these very well. And I love these because they're common stories and they're just a little bit more simplified, but they aren't twaddle. I love these readers. I highly recommend them. And from then on, you know, Charlotte Mason really takes us into the world of grammar and Form 2 and all of those fun rules that you need to teach when it comes to reading. So far, my daughter and I have worked on sounds like ing and what that means when you add it to a word, or the magic E or the silent E. So all of those words and those different rules are talked about a lot in this. And there is actually a sample lesson plan on how to make your own reading lesson plans for your child, because every child will have different material they'll want to read and that they'll be passionate about. So the last thing I want to share today is a rough schedule for our reading lessons. So we have 5 reading blocks every single week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And so Wednesdays, we always have our family read aloud, and that block is just set aside for that. So I don't count those as like lesson days, but Mondays and Tuesdays, Thursdays and Fridays, so 4 days a week, we have a 20-minute reading lesson block. So in that block, on Mondays, I plan every week to review our book of words, play a game like sound count, and then we go over a morning message, which is where I write out a little letter with a date and a dear so-and-so, my daughter's name. And then I write a little message to her for her to decode. And it's actually been a really positive way for her to kind of stay engaged and just to have something new to read each morning on Mondays. So that's kind of our Monday lesson, and that takes about 20 minutes. On Tuesdays, we review our book of words again, and we do nursery rhyme practice. So we'll work with a rhyme. Any nursery rhyme that we're working on, I'll make a little lesson plan for that and make sure that I have word cards for her to learn the new words, and then we'll play a game for finding the words, or we'll just read it together, and then we'll add any new words we learn into her book of words, and that's how we end Tuesdays. Thursdays, we review the book of words again, and then we play Invisible Switcheroo, which is where we're changing the sounds in words to listen to make new sounds. And then we work with a poem, and so like I said, we're working with Robert Louis Stevenson. We also have A.A. Milne poems that we read too, but those are a little longer, and she's not as familiar with those. So we'll work on a poem, and like I said, Charlotte Mason recommends that they're like short little recitation lessons, and recitation is just like reciting. So we'll kind of read through it together and do the same thing we did for the rhyme with a poem instead. And then on Fridays, we'll review our book of words again, and then we'll do primer practice. So we're working with the reader that I showed you earlier, and we'll pick a story and read through that together, and that takes about 20 minutes. So that is our whole week of reading lessons, and this is the middle of the year. It's March now. So in the beginning of the year, these lessons looked quite different. We were still learning very small words, and we weren't working with our primer, and so these are what we're doing now, but they were much different in the beginning of the year because we were going much slower, learning just how she learns to read and how she learns different words and sounds and what things she likes to do and what things she doesn't like to do when it comes to activities. So I've really developed this and tailored it for her. So it might not work for your child. Now, if you want to talk about teaching reading and you need help and you think that, this might work for your child, but you need to tailor it a little bit and change it, I'm happy to discuss it with you. I really enjoy talking about reading and talking about teaching. So send me an email, comment below, and I'll try to respond. The only other thing I wanted to share really quick is A Gentle Feast, which is something I considered for our full curriculum, but I'm really happy with the CMEC. Their Bible and history and all of those lessons that we do each day are wonderful. Last year, Julie Ross sent this to me, and this is her 100 Gentle Lessons in Sight and Sound. And I will say it's been good now that my daughter knows about nursery rhymes and knows how to read. So if you want something that's open and go, now Discover Reading takes a lot of prep work. I do a lot of prep for our reading lessons, but if you want something that's open and go, you've never taught reading before, you need more of like a just daily lesson guide, there's 100 lessons in here, and there's games you can play, and these are all very Charlotte Mason inspired too. So it's a good place to start if you are overwhelmed and want to get started, your child's sick, but you're not really sure how. Try this out, or again, try out Discover Reading. Hopefully this was helpful to you guys. Let me know in the comments if it was helpful and if there's anything that you want to see in the next coming few months. I'm going to try to put out videos every Thursday. Wish me luck. But let me know if you have questions, and thank you so much for watching. Everything I talked about is linked in the description below. Be sure to like this video and subscribe, and please leave a comment if you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.